Picture this. You know someone who proudly declares, "I don't need anybody." They wear their isolation like armor, their self-reliance like a crown. Society both admires and fears them. But here's what Nietzsche understood that we've forgotten. The person who needs nobody might be the most dangerous person alive. Think about it. Who scares you more? The person desperately seeking approval, or the one who seems completely untouchable? The needy individual is predictable, manageable. But someone who claims total independence? They're a wild card. But wait, isn't independence what we're all supposed to strive for? Isn't self-reliance the ultimate goal? Here's where it gets twisted. There's a razor-thin line between healthy autonomy and something far more sinister. When someone truly needs nobody, they owe nobody anything. No loyalty, no empathy, no accountability. They become untethered from the very fabric that holds civilization together. And that's when they become humanity's worst nightmare. So ask yourself, do you know someone like this? Are you becoming someone like this? Here's where most people get Nietzsche completely wrong. They read about the Übermensch, the overman, and think it means becoming a cold, detached island of superiority. But that's not what Nietzsche meant at all. In fact, it's the exact opposite. The Übermensch isn't someone who needs nobody. The Übermensch is someone who has transcended the need for external validation while still engaging meaningfully with the world. There's a massive difference, and confusing the two has created some of humanity's most dangerous individuals. Think about it this way. A true Übermensch creates values, doesn't just reject them. They build, they contribute, they elevate others. But the modern, "I need nobody" person? They're parasites disguised as philosophers. They take Nietzsche's profound insights about self-overcoming and twist them into justifications for selfishness and emotional cowardice. Here's the kicker. Nietzsche himself was deeply connected to people. He had intense friendships, passionate correspondences, and yes, he suffered when relationships ended. He understood that strength comes not from isolation, but from the courage to engage authentically despite the risks. So when someone tells you they've achieved Nietzschean independence by cutting everyone off, they're not following Nietzsche. They're following their own fear. They're not transcending human connection. They're running from it. The question is, are you building bridges or burning them? Are you creating your own values or just destroying others? Because there's a world of difference between the two, and only one leads to genuine strength. Let's dig deeper into the mind of someone who claims they need nobody. What's really happening beneath that fortress of independence? The psychology here is darker and more complex than most people realize. First, there's the trauma response. Many people who aggressively reject human connection have been deeply hurt. Maybe they were abandoned, betrayed, or manipulated. So they build walls and call it wisdom. They say, "I learned I can only depend on myself." But what they really learned was to be terrified of vulnerability. Here's what's fascinating. These individuals often display what psychologists call dismissive avoidant attachment. They've convinced themselves that needing others is weakness, but underneath, they're still that wounded child, just with better armor. But here's where it gets dangerous. When you completely shut down your need for connection, you don't just protect yourself from pain, you also shut down empathy. You can't truly understand others' suffering because you've numbed yourself to your own. You become emotionally colorblind. And if you're finding value in this deep dive into human psychology, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these crucial insights about the human condition. Think about the most ruthless people in history. Were they connected to others, or were they isolated islands of self-interest? The pattern is clear. When someone truly needs nobody, they can justify anything. No emotional stakes means no moral boundaries. The scariest part? They often seem the most rational, the most logical. But logic without empathy isn't wisdom. It's sociopathy with good PR. So ask yourself, when you say you don't need anyone, are you being strong or are you just being scared? Here's the ultimate irony about people who claim they need nobody. They're usually the biggest parasites in society. Let me explain this mind-bending contradiction. The person who proudly declares, "I don't need anyone," is typing this on a phone built by thousands of workers, using internet infrastructure maintained by millions, living in a society protected by laws they didn't create. They drive on roads they didn't build, eat food they didn't grow, and breathe clean air thanks to environmental protections they probably oppose. But here's the kicker. While they consume all these benefits of collective human effort, they refuse to contribute to the social contract. They take the advantages of civilization while rejecting the responsibilities that make civilization possible. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how these independent people are often the first to complain when public services fail, but the last to support the taxes that fund them? They want the benefits of community without the burden of actually being part of one. This creates what I call social vampirism. They extract value from human connections and social systems while giving nothing back. They're like someone who shows up to every potluck dinner empty-handed, but always fills their plate first. And here's where it gets truly dangerous for society. When enough people adopt this mindset, the entire social fabric begins to unravel. Trust erodes, cooperation becomes impossible, and we end up in a world where everyone is fighting everyone else. The person who needs nobody doesn't just isolate themselves. They actively make the world a colder, more hostile place for everyone else. They're not just rejecting connection. They're poisoning the well of human cooperation that makes civilization possible. So the question becomes, are you contributing to the human project, or are you just taking from it? Now that we understand the psychology and social impact, how do you actually identify when someone has crossed the line from healthy independence into something dangerous? The signs are subtle but unmistakable once you know what to look for. First, watch their language. Healthy, independent people say things like, "I choose my connections carefully," or "I value my autonomy." But the dangerous ones, they use absolutes. "People always disappoint." "Everyone is selfish." "I trust nobody." Notice the difference? One is selective. The other is wholesale rejection of humanity. Second, observe their empathy patterns. A genuinely strong person can acknowledge others' pain without feeling threatened. But someone who's crossed into toxic independence? They dismiss others' emotions as weakness or manipulation. They literally cannot connect with human suffering because they've armored themselves against their own. Here's a crucial tell. How do they react when others succeed? Healthy, independent people can celebrate others' victories. But the "I need nobody" person? They either ignore achievements or find ways to diminish them. Success of others threatens their narrative that everyone is incompetent or untrustworthy. And if you're recognizing these patterns, either in others or perhaps uncomfortably in yourself, make sure to subscribe to this channel. We're building a community of people committed to genuine growth and authentic strength, not the counterfeit version that destroys rather than builds. Watch their crisis behavior too. When life hits them hard, and it always does, do they reach out or do they double down on isolation? The truly dangerous ones become more isolated during crisis, not less. They'd rather suffer alone than admit they might need support. Most telling of all, how do they treat people who can't benefit them? Service workers, children, elderly people, anyone without power or status. This reveals their true character when the mask comes off. So what did Nietzsche actually mean when he talked about transcending conventional morality and becoming your own person? Here's where we reclaim his philosophy from those who've weaponized it for their own emotional cowardice. Nietzsche's concept of self-overcoming wasn't about rejecting all human connection. It was about choosing your connections consciously rather than desperately. There's a massive difference between saying "I don't need anyone" and saying "I choose who I connect with based on my values, not my fears." Think about it this way. A weak person needs everyone's approval. A broken person needs nobody's approval. But a strong person? They choose whose approval matters to them. They're selective, not dismissive. They're discerning, not disconnected. Nietzsche himself had deep, meaningful relationships throughout his life. He corresponded passionately with friends, engaged intensely with intellectual peers, and yes, he loved and lost. His strength came not from avoiding these experiences, but from engaging with them authentically, without losing himself in the process. Here's the revolutionary insight. True independence means you connect with others from a place of choice, not need. You don't cling to relationships out of desperation, but you don't reject them out of fear either. You engage because you choose to, because it aligns with your values and your vision of who you want to become. And if you've made it this far in this journey of understanding, I want you to do something. Write one word in the comments that represents the kind of strength you want to cultivate, not the fake strength of isolation, but the real strength of conscious connection, whether it's courage, authenticity, wisdom, or whatever resonates with you. You've shown real commitment to growth by staying with this message, so let's see that strength reflected in our community. The Übermensch doesn't stand alone because they hate humanity. They stand apart because they love humanity enough to become the best version of themselves for it. We've journeyed through the dark psychology of isolation, the social destruction of fake independence, and the true meaning of Nietzschean strength. Now comes the most important question of all. How do you find that razor-thin balance between being authentically yourself and meaningfully connected to others? Here's the truth that will change everything. The person who truly needs nobody is not strong. They're terrified. And the person who needs everybody is not loving. They're desperate. Real strength, real wisdom, real power lies in the space between these extremes. Think about the people who've had the greatest positive impact on humanity. Were they isolated islands of self-sufficiency? Or were they individuals so secure in themselves that they could give freely to others? Gandhi, who drew strength from solitude but lived for service. Einstein, who valued independence but collaborated brilliantly. They understood something profound. You can only give what you truly possess. The ultimate paradox is this: to truly not need anyone, you must first learn to connect authentically with everyone. Only when you've mastered genuine relationship can you choose your connections from strength rather than fear. Only when you've learned to love without losing yourself can you stand alone without becoming a monster. So here's your final challenge. Look at your relationships. Are you connecting from fear or from choice? Are you isolating from strength or from wounds? Are you building bridges or burning them? The answer will determine not just your own fate, but the kind of world you're creating for everyone else. Remember, the goal isn't to need nobody. The goal is to choose everybody you connect with consciously, courageously, and authentically. That's not just strength. That's wisdom. That's not just independence. That's true freedom. The question isn't whether you need people. The question is, what kind of person will you choose to be with them?